Alrighty guys, let's take this off the table. So I've been meaning to actually do a studio tour for a while now. I guess you can probably tell by now because it's the end, it's November, actually no, it's December. It's December of 2021 and I'm finally doing my 2021 studio. So a little bit late to the party. I realized that the reason I haven't posted it is because I wanted it to look like schmick and look clean and look good. But 99.9% of the time it's not. It's a complete mess. And I've just never really spent the time to clean it up properly. So I've kind of cleaned it up a little, but not really. So you can see what it actually looks like, how functional the space actually is, and how I've kind of set it up, I guess, to make it work for me. How's it going, guys? My name is Andrew Murphy from Down Under in Gold Coast, Australia. Alrighty, so basically you have to start moving everything out of this studio to then move into the new place to reset everything up. There's actually just a ton of stuff everywhere at the moment because basically I'm just bringing everything out, putting into boxes, getting everything ready to actually move to the new place. So I measured up this studio and I think this was about 2.5 by 3.5 meters, excluding this kind of little wardrobe thing here, and I think the new place is 3 meters by 3 meters, so it's more of a square rather than like a rectangle. So I still don't know exactly how I'm going to set it up, but once the removals bring over the desk, which is obviously the main part of the studio, then I can start setting that up and see how much room I have around to kind of put all the lights and boxes and shelves and all that kind of stuff. So until we get that there, I really have no idea how it's going to look. So we moved into this house, I think it was around mid-year 2021, around June. So we've nearly been here for 6 months now. The space that I have for my studio is just the second bedroom in our house. It's a bit of a better space than the last one I had. The last one was really long, which was a little bit awkward to kind of put stuff in because it wasn't really wide. Whereas this is just a square, so it works a little bit better. I think the way that I've set it up is pretty good. I've utilized the space pretty good, and I've used a few little interesting I guess products to make it work better for me and work in such a small space. Slowly started setting up the studio. So this is kind of roughly what it's going to look like, I think. So editing desk over here. This sit-stand desk will probably be on wheels so I can move it around. Little shelving unit here, and then probably a shelving unit here to store all the lights and bags and all that kind of stuff. And then essentially I can kind of shoot from this direction, and this direction. So 3 kind of sets that I can probably set up. Do need to figure out what I'm going to do with the curtains to black out the windows, so not 100% sure how we're going to do that, but slowly getting there. What do you reckon? You just want to eat the carpet, don't you? First things first, as we walk in the door, you'll see kind of what my setup is. So I've got my main editing station on the right. That is a sit-stand desk as well, so I can obviously sit or stand if I want to. It just makes the editing process a little bit easier, and especially if I'm I've had weeks where I'm just editing all week and just not really getting out. So being able to sit and stand definitely makes a difference. On the left, we have this little cube system, which basically just a storage unit, just kind of stores a bunch of stuff in there. It's also kind of a cool little, I guess, it's a way of putting the products on show, but also storing them away as well. So I had 2 of these in my last studio as my backdrop. I'm just using one now, and the other one's gone into the lounge room. And also the Holy Land, most supportive content creator of the year, 2021. Got to display those awards we get for doing what we do. Now moving to the left even more, I have this racking system, and this actually just stores all of my, I guess, products and lights and gear and whatnot, but kind of houses it away a little bit. But it's also the set that you're seeing right now. It's also the background of the videos that I make. I've deliberately done this to make it look somewhat interesting rather than just having, a blank wall and making it super boring. Alrighty, so this studio space is slowly getting there. So the big issue we had was this window. So what I've done, I've got a Clark rubber and just got a bit of foam cut up to the exact size. Odie, leave the sandbag. He started eating up the sandbag. Leave it, please. Got it cut to the exact size of this window, so that basically blacks that out. What I've done with this sound blanket is I basically put it all the way over to the wall. So Odie, leave it. matched up. So it kind of looks like from here, when you kind of like zoom in, it just looks like this whole wall is black, which works really good for like the contrast. But I want to figure out how to make it so I can open it quickly, because obviously there's a window there and I want to be able to get some fresh air in here. So that is where hopefully the window will open, because getting the foam out of there is actually quite difficult to do. And then I'm trying to figure out this little like all-in-one camera C-stand kind of sitch thing. So that's coming together. And then yeah, all the actual like gear is going in here, and then still got to fill this out, but coming together. What do you reckon, Odie? Yeah, you like it? Right, so first things first, let's start with the actual camera setup that I use to shoot this talking head sequence in my studio. So the main camera that I'm using right now in my studio is the Canon R6. It was the EOS R for basically all my content since moving to the Gold Coast, but only recently I got the R6 just for the IBIS and also the 4K 60 as well without a crop and the 10-bit as well. So I just wanted to upgrade that camera so I can use it more as like a BTS camera rather than having to, you know, lug around the big C200. It's just a little bit easier for, especially when I'm like having assistants help me out. Having that IBIS definitely makes it easier to capture more stable content, and just having a smaller rig as well. It's just a little bit, it's just less overwhelming for new people if you just kind of throw it to them and you're like, hey, can you just kind of get a little bit of BTS of what's going on say like a commercial set. So the R6 is rigged out in a small rig cage. We've got a Feel World 5-inch monitor on top just so I can see what I'm actually like, what you guys are seeing, so I can make sure the framing is good. I can make sure that this is centered. I can make sure that I've got enough headroom, all that kind of stuff, just while I'm actually shooting the shot. And then the main lens that I use in the studio is the Sigma 18-35mm f1.8. Now this is a crop censored lens. So pairing it with the Canon R6, I have had to zoom it in. So I think it's on like a 24, maybe like a 30mm or something, just because if I go all the way to the 18mm, I get a vignetting on it. So it still works, but I just have to crop in a little bit, I guess, with, not crop in, but zoom in to avoid that vignetting. On the end of that is the DesView T2 teleprompter, which I have started using less. I was scripting all my videos and just like basically reading it, and then I kind of started going off the cuff a little bit and reading a little bit and doing like a half. But now, like this video right now, I'm just talking off the cuff. I find it's a little bit more natural, a little bit more authentic. I kind of do go on tangents like I'm doing right now a lot, and I kind of like do get a little bit tongue-tied and stuff, but I feel like that's me. Like that's just the content. That's not the content. That's the person that I am, and that's how I speak in real life. And the main thing that I wanted to, I guess, really bring across in my videos for 2021 was that if you met me in person, I want what you're seeing on the camera to be what you experience in person. Like I don't want there to be a big disconnect. So that's why I kind of changed the way I've started doing my content and making it a little bit more authentic and genuine and I guess just natural. Right, now this is all mounted on a light stand. It was a C stand for the longest time, but I wanted to actually use that on my commercial sets. So I've moved it to a light stand. Probably not the best stand because of all the weight on it, but it does work because I'm only using it, you know, for 20-30 minutes at a time with it set up like this. I don't leave it set up like this. But essentially I just have a Neewer heavy duty light stand. On the top of this we have a boom pole with a few grip heads, and then on the end of that we have my main key light, which is the Forza 60. Now this was the Forza 150. The reason that I changed to the Forza 60 was number one, the Forza 150 is very big. 150 watts is just way too much power for this small of a space. And it was just a little bit too heavy as well, like booming it out like this, quite heavy, quite bulky. And I didn't have really a smallish modifier that I could use with it. So I had to boom it up quite high. You can see the ceilings are quite small on this. I've got a fan right above me. So it was a little bit limiting. So Forza 60 is the one that I went with because it's a very small form factor. It's super light. I use it with the fan off, so I only can max it out at 30% power, but that I have to deal with any audio issues, again, being in a small confined space. And the modifier that I'm using for the longest this time I was using a softbox, but now I'm actually using a lantern with a skirt around it. So I guess it kind of acts like a bit of a softbox anyway. 60 centimeter lantern from Nanlite, and the reason I put a skirt around it is because I've got white walls in here. So if I took the skirt off, then it just spills everywhere. I get a lot of feel, and I can't get this kind of like this contrast ratio that I've got in this talking head segment. Then for audio, I just have a Niwa boom arm, and I have a I always forget what this is called. Synco D1, a Synco D1 XLR microphone. This is my main mic that I use in my studio and also on my commercials as well. The main reason I've got it set up like this and not like a super permanent setup is that I can just quickly unplug it and take it with me on location so I can actually use it. Whereas a lot of the other stuff just stays where it is, like I don't really use it on location. And I've set it up that way so I can just quickly set it up and shoot a video without having to think too much. And then of course I have some sandbags on the bottom just to hold everything down so I don't have it tipping and falling and all that kind of stuff. But when I'm actually done with this setup, I do fold it away so it's out of the way and not kind of like just in the way, I guess. It feels like quite nice having it on this just single light stand, and also kind of like tucks away into the corner a little bit as well, which is really what I wanted it to be. I wanted to have a practical solution that was easy to set up, fast to set up, but then also just would kind of store away, still packed up as well. Yeah, I guess this is kind of like a part of the racking as well, but the other lights that I have for this talking head, I got two Nanlite PowerTube 15Cs. The reason I've got 15Cs is because they're a little bit older, they're a little bit cheaper, and I can just leave them in the studio. So again, these stay in the studio, I never take these out. So I've got a red one over here and a blue one over here, because that's my branding colors. And they're actually plugged into power, so they just stay there. They're always, I guess not always powered on, but they're always on charge. Again, semi-permanent, but also kind of permanent setup as well. All right, so as good as this was working, it just made it really difficult to, I guess, open up this window. So I ordered this real cheap blockout curtain on eBay. Ordered it last night, it came this morning, and it actually does a pretty good job. Like, if I bring this over, obviously there is a few little light leaks and stuff I need to work out. But like, for the most part, it does a pretty good job of blocking it out. I reckon it'll be enough to basically just overpower it with some lights and stuff. I think this might actually be a better solution, because then when I want to actually open the window and get some natural light in here, I can easily do it this way, which is much better. And I'll probably also get another set of these for this window. Obviously it's too long, like it will just go all the way down. But then it kind of just like makes it looks like two big windows, and I can easily open them up and whatnot. So I think this is the way to go. So my main computer that I'm editing on at the moment is the M1 Mac Mini. A few reasons. I was on the 27-inch iMac from, I think it was like 2014 or something. I had that for the longest time. We've still got it as well. I wanted to get into the M1 system. There are a lot of things wrong with it that I don't like, so I want to upgrade to something a little bit better in the near future. But for everything I do, it does the job good enough. For my main screen, I just have a Kogan 34-inch ultra-wide curved monitor. Now this thing is, it's like semi-cheap. It's not the best quality monitor, but I just needed something that was big and fitted the budget that I had at the time when I purchased it. I think I spent about 600 Australian dollars on it, so it's quite reasonable for what you get. Color accuracy isn't the best, and also moving from that 5K 27-inch iMac to this, which is, I guess, a 4K ultra wide. So stepping down from that, I have noticed a resolution difference and just like the sharpness of when I'm like trying to figure out what it looks like on the final edit and whatnot. And then only just recently I got a second Kogan monitor because I started getting into trading. So I wanted to have another screen that would just have charts on and whatnot that I could just quickly glance at. But I'm not quite sure about this. It is quite overwhelming. I am getting used to it now, but it's a lot going on. So whether that will stay or not, I'm still undecided. But I'm sitting back like there's a lot going on, a lot in my face, especially because they are ultra wides. So yeah, we'll see if that stays or not. Then for sound, I just have these Edifier studio monitors. I'll leave the actual like model down here. I can't remember exactly what they are. These are fantastic. They're super cheap. I think they were like 130 Australian dollars something. Really good sound, very loud, very good like range as well. So you can hear a lot of the stuff. And I've just also put them on just some bits of foam as well, just to isolate any of that like vibration and stuff when you do have those lower end frequencies, because they can kind of like vibrate your desk and change the sound a little bit. So I just wanted to kind of like elevate those and get them off to get the best quality sound possible. And then you also notice that I'm using like the cheapest keyboard and mouse setup ever. For no particular reason, I moved over here with that from like my old second editing computer back in Perth, and I noticed that the Bluetooth on the M1 Mac Mini is just horrendous. So I had to, I guess not throw away, but move away from the Bluetooth keyboard and mouse that I was using, and I just had this laying around, and since getting it, I just haven't upgraded. It is due for an upgrade. If it's not broken, don't fix it, sort of thing. Oh, and also for storage, I actually just have this QNAP, what is it, a TX431X NAS drive, and I have 4 6TB WD Reds in it, which are the NAS drives, and I've got that in a RAID 5. So that ends up being an 18TB storage solution. And I actually edit everything off that as well. It's just plugged in via Ethernet, so it is a little bit slow. I did have a full 10 gigabit Ethernet setup for my my iMac. That was amazing. I absolutely loved using that. And I had 2 drives and an SSD cache, and it just went crazy. But because that uses a Thunderbolt connection, which doesn't work with the new M1 Mac Mini, that has kind of just been sidelined for the time being. Every few months I just kind of like offload the stuff that I've finished or completed, and it works with everything that I've been using it for. And finally, moving to the racking behind me. So again, this is where I just store everything and also use it as a background as well. The main reason so the main shelf down here is my Nanlite shelf, which you can probably tell. Big fan of Nanlite. If you haven't figure that out by now, then I'm sure you will if you watch any of my other videos. But essentially this just stores all my lights and my rigging setup, and I've got these boxes from Bunnings, which I've basically set up to just have a bunch of different stuff in it. So some of it is like gaffing, some of it's rigging, one of it's just like generic studio stuff that I can just throw a whole bunch of stuff in there. I've got like action cameras, gimbals, power cables, just stuff so then if I do need to take it on location for a commercial, I can just grab the whole box. Because I was getting sick of basically just having handfuls of just random stuff and just kind of like throwing it in my car. I just wanted a solution where I could just grab a box and just take that with me to make it so much easier. And it's made it so much easier. Plus it's made it cleaner in the studio as well, because everything can just go in a box and it can be stored away out of sight. On the end here, I have my light stand rack. So again, this is more of a recent thing as well. I've only been doing this for like a week or so. Again, I was putting it all in the cupboard behind me, which is a mess. We're not gonna go in there because it's just a bunch of random stuff. But essentially I wanted to find a solution where I didn't have to just keep stacking my light stands on top of each other, and just make it easier to grab and much more accessible as well. So on the end of this, I've basically just used my light stands to just hook them over the top, figured out a way of adjusting them so they all kind of like stack really nicely. And I think I can get about 7 on there, plus my big Kupo stand. Again, out of sight, but also if I do need to quickly grab a stand, could just quickly grab it, rip it off, and it's ready to go. So I really like that way of actually just storing light stands rather than kind of like shoving them in a corner and just kind of like stacking them on top of each other. Doesn't look good. It's obviously probably not that good for the stands as well, but also just they just don't really stack that nice either. And then also there'll just be typically a whole bunch of boxes of products that I'm currently shooting commercials for, or products I'm currently shooting YouTube content for. So that typically just kind of gets stored on the bottom, try to get it out of the view of currently what you're seeing right now. I just realized that you can see this this box of cables right down here, which is not really good for the video, but it's been here the whole time, so we'll just leave it there. That is kind of it. Yeah, if you do have any questions about anything that you've seen in the studio that I didn't mention, be sure to leave a comment down below. I'll try to answer that for you. I'll try to explain why I've got that. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this look at my studio for 2021. It's probably going to change come like mid next year. I think we are looking at getting a bigger house, so hopefully a bigger studio as well, which would make a big difference, because even though I've set it up in the way, it is still quite crampy, and I just want to have a bigger space to be able to be more creative and not feel so, I guess, like claustrophobic and confined to such a tiny space. But stay tuned for that. We'll see if that happens next year or not. Otherwise, if you did enjoy this, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. If you want to find out any more about the products that I used, most of them are linked down below, but if I haven't done any, again, leave a comment, ask me, and I'll be able to send you a link to exactly what it is. Otherwise, yeah, stay creative and just be you. Have fun.